superhero has an origin story, and we're going to get deep into the origin story of Gyi Tsakalakis.
And you will be disappointed that it is not as exciting as any superhero story that you've ever heard. But this music is very dramatic.
Dude, listen, I'm not sure. I'm going to ask Adam when we do my version of this to tone down the music. Like, I need maybe some
just leave
Kenny
the
G
music
or
on
something.
the whole time.
We're setting some pretty big expectations for you. Okay, Gyi, you and I met presumably sometime, or at least crossed paths sometime in Ann Arbor in 1999 or 1998, maybe 2000. What led you? What's the origin story? What's going on with it? How did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, and I think because it's very hard to tell your own story here, and it's like, why are we randomly doing this? And we didn't say anything about this.
We didn't.
So
I was supposed to do that. Gyi's prompting me to read the goddamn show notes, dude.
The listeners are like, this is so random. Like, all of a sudden, they're just going to start doing their bios.
He's going to talk about
with
himself.
some fancy
Okay,
music.
so the superhero music brought to you by Daniel W4610 on YouTube. And Daniel asked us, I watch all of your videos and find them insightful, but I have no clue who you guys are and why you make these videos. Are you in business together? What is your company name, etc.? Just an observer, just trying to help. Thank you, Daniel. And for that question, we're going to listen to the origin story along with some killer superhero music from Gyi.
Great. So now I feel
There's some
slightly less totally awkward to tell you my origin story. Hardly a superhero, but I guess for me, for like this part of it, I would start with, I started thinking I was going to go into computer science. So 1997, I got gratefully Michigan somehow, someone at the admissions office at Michigan was not paying attention and let me slip through to get in.
Yeah,
so,
I think we may have had the same admissions officer, even though I was grad school, but boy, oh boy, I was in over my head when I got into Michigan B school.
And so I started out as a computer science major. And again, this is 1997. So computer science as a field of study is much different than, if someone was starting computer science today. And it became quickly clear to me that I was not going to be a hardcore coder. It didn't sound appealing to me to be sitting in a room writing code all day. And again, that's no offense to coders. It was a much different situation back then. And so I, quote unquote, pivoted and picked the most practical degree that I could ever think of, which was philosophy. And I don't regret my philosophy degree for a second. In fact, even beginning philosophical, maybe I should have gone into academia and become a full-time philosopher, but I had different ambitions. And so I went to law school, loved law school. I think law school was the first time that it was the most engaged I'd ever been in my education ever. And I wish I could just be a professional law school student. I'm very, very fascinated by all that stuff. And then practiced law. And I was at a small plaintiff's firm, very grateful for the opportunity to work there. It was really baptism by fire. I got to participate in several trials, and I covered a lot of motion hearings. I got enamored with being in court and the actual practice, and was super into that. And as a new lawyer, I was tasked with going out and figuring out what we talked about associates. Should associates be involved in marketing? I'm the former computer science major, new lawyer at the firm. So they're like, go figure out what we should be doing online. And so I asked around. I didn't just talk to the lawyers at our firm. I talked to other lawyers. I shopped all of the big players at the time. I remember Legal Fish was a big player. Total Attorneys was doing lead generation even back then. Talked to some other agency folks. And, ultimately I came back and I was like, man, there seems to be a huge gap here in the market. And, and a lot of lawyers. This is 2005, 6. They started having these conversations. I mean, we founded AttorneySync in 2008. So somewhere between 05 and 08, I was talking to lawyers, and a lot of lawyers even would say things like, I just don't think that we're going to, people are going to use the internet to hire lawyers like us. And again, this is 2005, not super early. Like it's already happening. So it's pretty clear to me this continue to be a thing. So anyway, gradually through that process, my business partner and I, Jeff, who'd been friends from undergrad, got together. He had been doing lead generation for at-home services. And so we founded AttorneySync, and we were like, we feel like we can do a better job. And that's my origin story for AttorneySync.
So at some point in time, you had to be like, I want to do this thing that I don't know anything about more than the legal stuff that I'm actually qualified to do. That is talk about closing your eyes and jumping off a cliff, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, David C. Bayer talks about this a lot too, but and I think this is valuable for any entrepreneurial lawyer that might be listening, is that the common thing about being an entrepreneur is you have to have some risk tolerance, because I don't care what kind of expert you are, switching from I'm taking a paycheck to I've got to create value in a business that I own. It's a huge jump, and you're going to be, unless you strike oil somehow, for a while, you're not going to be getting paid for these services. You're not going to be paid probably what you're worth. Now it's funny you said that I was qualified to practice law. Like technically, I love this distinction, because I was licensed to practice law. Sure. I was certainly competent to do the things that I was doing, but I was a couple of years out of law school. Like I wasn't, competent in the way that I think about competent to practice. And so anyway, I think that the big thing that you point out though is that it is a leap. There is a leap that you have to make. And my leap was really, it was more about, because there are times like I still miss practicing. There's stuff that I loved about practicing law that really energized me that I still miss to this day. But I think when at that time, when I really try to reflect on what made that decision, it was an opportunity for me to be, to create my own business and to really design a business and a lifestyle that hit a lot of the high notes for me, right? So, Jeff and I talked about these types of things, being able to design a workplace that we wanted to, because it's not just doing SEO and building websites and, running a business. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you have to be at least willing, if not interested in doing, in order to make that jump.
So I'm gonna go personal, because I know just a little bit about your story. We're gonna go a little bit deeper into Gyi.
Let's go
one of your
Gyi.
One of your superheroes, maybe your biggest superhero, is your mom, right?
Yes.
And how she has to be amazingly proud of you, but how has your mom kind of influenced your direction?
Well, look, let's face it, and I was in a single family household. My mom raised me by herself with my brother and sister. So she had 3 under 5, and she's a special needs educator. So, she wasn't like a VC or a private equity person. But, you asked me how she shaped my life. One, just observing her living the journey that she was living and the perseverance that she had, for sure. But, look, for me, I'd say can't paint a broad brush. It's not true for everybody. For me, my values, really, the seeds were planted by my mom. And so even in our company, we talk about integrity, we talk about transparency, we talk about doing the right thing. Like that stuff for me came from my mom. Interestingly, it also came from a lot of the mentors I had later. Like my football coaches played a big role in shaping me. And even my mentors at the law firm, and there was a lot of overlap there, because the offensive coordinator from my football team, he was also, that is a firm that I went to work at when I started. And he was my mentor, both in football as well as in my early law career. And so super grateful to Matt Turner for being there for that. And huge influence, and my mom as well.
If you were to do one thing differently, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, look, I wish that I had gotten exposed to the concept of working on your business instead of in your business much earlier. For years, I was, because again, I was a self-taught marketer. I didn't go to get a marketing degree. I was early days, I was self-taught on, Moz, and, I read everything I get my hands on about SEO and marketing. But I liked doing it. Like I thought it was so cool that we could do stuff and show up in Google. And it was, you know, again, like we laugh about Black Hat and all this kind of stuff, but you know, the early, especially early on, even true today though, I still get excited when this happens. But when you take a business or take a website that doesn't show up on the internet at all, and then all of a sudden you start to see traffic coming in and start to see business converting, you start to see it showing up for, you know, more competitive queries. You pop into the local pack. That's exciting. Like that is like, what a cool thing that you took this, you know, this business website, you know, in our case, law firms, and you totally transformed it. And again, it's SEO's hard and super competitive and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, to respond to your question, that I gravitated towards doing the work, right? Like I loved consulting on like, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to earn links. Here's how we're going to create the content that's going to drive links. Here's how we're going to fix the website and your web presence and all this stuff. But the downside of that is that it does, you know, you don't grow the same, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a solo independent, just like a solo independent lawyer, solo independent practitioner. But for me, like if I had one thing different, I could have had my eyes open to like, hey, if you want to grow this business beyond just you doing the work, if I would have come to that realization a little bit earlier, because it wasn't until years later that I started to, you know, me and my partner were both like, you know, look, we want to grow beyond what we're doing right now. And that's going to require actually having a business that's made up of other people and processes and systems. And you have to teach them how you do things and all that kind of stuff.
Last question. You and I talk perhaps ad nauseum about the importance of having a business focus on your marketing. Where are you trying to go? What are your objectives? Business metrics, KPIs, cost per client, those types of things. Definitely not taught in law school. I'm pretty sure when you're reading the treatises of Socrates, there I've just bungled whatever. I'm sure Socrates didn't have treatises, but whatever one reads when one is a philosophy major, that stuff doesn't come up, right?
Right.
And so you've been very self-taught on this, I'm assuming. Where did your orientation for this? Because I feel like some people either innately get this or they will never understand. Where did that come from?
That's School of Hard Knocks, brother. That is, you know what that is? That's
time.
We did work for a law firm, and we're like, the traffic's up, the pixels are firing, it's converting, the phone's ringing, we're generating all these leads, we don't understand, and the firm's saying, this isn't helping our business at all. You're fired, right? That's where that comes from. And so you quickly realize, you got to connect the dots to like, they're trusting you to invest in their growth. And so if you can't demonstrate that what you're doing is helping them grow, you're not going to last long, right? You can send ranking reports and traffic reports and even call reports until you're blue in the face, and you can show charts up and to the right. But if you time in, time out, and this is how it's happened to us. We had clients, they're like, we like you. We like your ideas. We think that this all looks really good. Like what you're telling us is all making sense. But for whatever reason, we're not connecting it back to growth of the firm. And sometimes it's stuff that was totally out of our hands, right? You and I talk about this on the pod all the time. They didn't answer the phone. I wouldn't even have known that was a thing. I wasn't like, you know, secret shopping them. I wasn't like, I didn't have call rail being like, hey, you know, you got 50% of your calls are going unanswered or going to voicemail. And so that part of it's School of Hard Knocks. And what you realize is that's really where the value creation happens. It happens when you're like, we agree on what the outcome we're trying to achieve looks like. And that's not to say like some of those other vanity metrics and leading indicators, some people, that's what they're looking for. Like they've got a lot of the other things locked down. Like they want to see that, or maybe they're brand new and it's going to take them a while. But at the end of the day, for us, for our business, like we know, it's funny too, because we talk about this, and you and I have talked about it a lot too, but you know, whether you want to call it MBA mindset or whatever, if you have to be able to demonstrate in our business the value that's being created. And that's true too. Again, going back to our earlier conversation today, whether you're an in-house marketer, whether you're a marketing director, whether you're a CMO of a big company, this is why there's so much churn in the marketing function, because people are, you know, marketing people come in and they're like, I got this great idea. it sounds cool, you do it. But if you can't tie that to value metrics to the business, you're eventually going to be like, I don't know. I don't see it. Sounds good, but I don't see it. So
I got this great idea from a conference that someone was paying to speak at. We should do it.
Right. And that's another thing that we are very, we do the mission, vision, values. We have the vision traction organizer, and our core focus, core purpose is always building trust. Like we want to be the most trusted team in digital legal marketing. And look, it's like we've talked about many times. It's hard. We don't always get it right, but we hope that no one that we work with ever feels betrayed, or that we did something we weren't going to do, or that we hid the ball. And then again, back to this, part of my origin story, that's my mom, right? Like that's my mom, every day. And I had to take on a role early on in my family because I was the oldest brother of a single parent, and at least in my experience, I had to take on a lot of that responsibility. And so that stuff was super, super important. And so, that we tried to bring that as best we can to our business to the extent that I'm able to influence that.
All right, dear listener, if you liked what you heard, please leave a review or get back to us if you want to hear more origin story of myself. Because that's what's on task for
I can't wait for
it
to be your turn. I can't wait for it to be your turn.
What I'm suggesting is if no one got to this far in the pod and no one is hearing us asking for feedback, maybe we should skip the Conrad origin story version.
We should do. We'll give a little. Let's give a teaser, and we'll do a teaser because Daniel W4610 on YouTube.
Okay.
We didn't directly answer his question. So, are we in business together? No, Conrad and I are not in business together. My company's name's AttorneySync. I probably should have said that because I've never said that.
Part.
Conrad's company is Mockingbird, and he will tell you his story next time.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world